You ever feel like the world's been holding its breath just to see how far you'll fall? Yeah, that was me. My name is Alina. I'm 31, and not too long ago, I was living on a friend's couch with 2 suitcases, no savings, and a gaping hole where my childhood home used to be. The worst part, the person who pushed me there was my own mother. Let me start from the beginning. Growing up, I was what they call an emotional orphan. Sure, I had both parents. My dad, Alan, was a kind, soft-spoken man. An architect who believed in hard work, afternoon tea, and keeping promises. My mom, Darlene, she believed in appearances, in control, in always having the last word. From the outside, people said we were a perfect family. Inside, let's just say the cracks were showing long before the house ever did. Dad and I were close. I was his shadow, especially once he got sick. Pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. It came like a thief in the night and took everything from him except his heart. Even in those final months, when his voice was faint and the pain meds blurred his vision, he always managed to smile when I entered the room. I want you to keep the house. Alina, he whispered one evening. It was late. The lamp on the knitstand cast a soft glow over his sunken face. This house, I built it for you. You were the first one to walk through the front door after I laid the floors. I want you to always have it. I nodded, fighting back tears. I'll take care of it, Dad. I promise. Mum never visited much during that time. Side hospitals made her feel anxious. Translation. She couldn't bear being around something she couldn't control. When Dad passed, I expected sadness from her. Some grief. Instead, she sat at the dining table the next morning, flipping through real estate listings. I think I'm ready to downsize, she said, sipping her coffee like nothing had happened. This house is too big now, I blinked. He said he left it to me, Mom. She didn't even flinch. Just kept scrolling on her tablet. Well, we'll see what the lawyer says. And just like that, everything I thought was mine ... started. Slipping away at the reading of the will. I remember my palms were sweating. I wore Dad's favorite navy blue sweater. I sat on the edge of my seat, waiting ... and then nothing ... no mention of the house. No clause. No handwritten note. Just a vague sentence about assets being distributed at Darlene's discretion. I felt the ground shift beneath me. But, he told me, I whispered. He promised. The lawyer looked apologetic but firm. I'm sorry, Alina. Unless there's a revised will or additional documentation, everything defaults to the surviving spouse. Mom didn't even look at me. She was too busy texting someone. That night, I packed a bag and left. It wasn't dramatic. No yelling, no tearful goodbye. Just a silent acceptance that I had no power. That the one person who should have protected me had left me exposed. I moved in with my friend, Jenna. She had a small 1-bedroom, but offered her couch and never asked questions. That was 6 months ago. At first, I tried to move on. Applied for new jobs. Sent out resumes. Worked side gigs. Told myself it didn't matter that a house is just a building. But every night, I'd open Zillow and search my childhood address. Just to see it. Just to feel connected. Then one morning, I saw it. For sale. $995,000 photos of the inside my room, repainted. The staircase Dad built by hand. The backyard we planted sunflowers in. It was all there, stripped of meaning and dressed up for strangers. I felt sick. I called Mom. For the first time in months, she picked up like I was a telemarketer. Hello? Why are you selling the house? I asked, heart pounding. There was a pause, then her signature sigh. I don't owe you an explanation, Alina. It's not just yours. He wanted me to have it, he said so. Well, he should have written that down then, shouldn't he? Click. She hung up. That's when the shift happened. It wasn't grief anymore, it was fire. She could pretend I didn't matter, pretend I was weak. But what she forgot was that I was his daughter too. And unlike her, I wasn't going to sell my soul for $1 million payday. Was going to get that house back, even if it meant dragging her through every legal loop in the book. I knew exactly where to start. The next morning, I woke up with one mission: find the original will. The real one. Because there was no way my dad would have left that house up to Darlene's discretion. That man planned everything. He color-coded our cereal boxes, for crying out loud. No way did he leave my entire future as a suggestion. I started by calling Dad's old attorney, Mr. Holloway, the one who helped him draft the first version of the will years ago before he got sick. I remember your father well, Mr. Holloway said kindly over the phone. He was very thorough, very clear in what he wanted. Do you have a copy of the will that names me? I asked, holding my breath. He paused. I did. But your mother came in not long after his diagnosis, claiming he needed to update it. She brought him here herself. After that, I was no longer his legal representative. My stomach sank. You mean she changed lawyers? Yes. I was surprised, to be honest. Alan told me he trusted me, but, well, things happen in families during hard times. I hung up feeling like I'd just stepped into a quicksand pit. She changed his lawyer. She intervened in his estate planning. The woman who couldn't sit with him for 10 minutes during chemo sessions was now suddenly involved in drafting his final wishes? No, something stunk, and I was going to find the rot. I visited the new lawyer's office, Ross and Burnham, LLP. The receptionist glanced at me like I didn't belong the moment I walked in. Do you have an appointment? No, but I'm Alan McCarthy's daughter. He was a client here. I just need to see a copy of his will. She clicked something on her screen. I'm sorry. That information is private and protected by attorney-client privilege unless you're the executor or a named beneficiary. But that's the thing, I'm supposed to be a beneficiary. She gave me a tight, rehearsed smile. Then you'll need to take it up with the probate court. So I did. It turns out. The will that was probated, the one I heard read aloud, was barely 3 pages long. Simple. Almost too simple. It listed the house, the savings, the assets, and gave my mother sole authority. No mention of me. But Dad had promised, repeatedly, when he was lucid, when he wasn't on meds, when he was still my dad. I started piecing together every memory, every conversation. One night, I remembered something small but clear. I left a copy in the garage. He had whispered during a particularly bad night when I was helping him change the 4th bag, behind the paint cans, just in case. That house had been cleaned out, repainted, and staged for sale. But maybe, just maybe, I called Jenna, begged her to drive me to the house. It was scheduled for an open house the next day, and I didn't want anyone else snooping first. I showed up in a hoodie and sunglasses like I was robbing a bank, heart pounding as we pulled into the driveway. For SALE $995,000. Sign stood tall at the curb like a tombstone. The front door was unlocked. Typical staging pillows and fake ferns decorated the living room, where we once watched Disney movies on a ratty couch. I didn't stop to look. I went straight to the garage, behind the paint cans, and there it was. A faded manila envelope, water-stained and dusty. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a will dated 3 months before the one my mom had probaded. It was longer, more detailed. It included a clause that left the house in full and permanent possession to my daughter, Alina Rose McCarthy, upon my death. It even included a handwritten note. For my girl. Your home always, Dad. My breath hitched. Was real. This was it. But why hadn't it been submitted? Because Mom had changed the attorney, filed the new version, and never mentioned this one. She knew. She knew. She buried it. Probably hoped I'd never go looking. But I had it now. Jenna helped me scan every page. We took photos, made copies, emailed them to ourselves and 3 different backup accounts. I was going to the courthouse first thing Monday morning. That night, I lay on Jenna's couch, staring at the ceiling. So many questions ran through my head. Had my mom convinced Dad to change the will? Or had she written the new one herself? Would the court even believe this document now, months later? But beneath the fear was something new. Resolved. I wasn't just fighting for a house anymore. I was fighting for the last thing my father ever gave me. The last shred of his love not tainted by lies and greed. The next morning I walked into the probate court office and asked to speak with someone about contesting a will. The clerk handed me a thick packet. You'll need to file a petition to reopen the case. And you'll want a lawyer. This gets complicated. Complicated didn't scare me anymore. Because now I had proof. Now she had something to lose. Asterisk. Have you ever felt the shift? That moment when grief turns into resolve. When fear transforms into fire. That's what I felt walking out of the probate court that Monday morning. Packet of legal documents clutched in hand. The copy of Dad's real will secured in my backpack like it was the Holy Grail. I wasn't scared anymore. I was furious. I stopped by a cafe and called someone I hadn't spoken to in over a year. Someone I should have never lost touch with. Alina? The voice on the other end said, "Hey Milo, I need a favor." Milo wasn't just an old friend, he was my ex. We dated for 3 years in college, broke up mutually, and stayed friends. Then life got busy and we drifted. But I knew 2 things about him. He was now a licensed estate attorney. He hated injustice more than anyone I knew. I met him for coffee an hour later. He looked the same: messy hair, suit without a tie, a leather briefcase full of crumpled papers. I slid the envelope across the table. "I need you to look at this." He scanned it in silence, eyes narrowing as he read the signature, the handwritten note, and the witness names. "Is this the original will?" I nodded. "Dated 3 months before the one that was probated." He exhaled slowly. "Alina, this changes everything. If this holds up, the other will become irrelevant, especially if we can show your mom manipulated the second version. Can we stop the sale of the house?" I asked. "Yes, but we'll need to move fast. If the buyer signs and the money exchanges hands, reversing it becomes a nightmare. Has the house closed yet?" "Not yet. Open house was yesterday. She's expecting offers this week." Milo tapped the table. "Then we file for an emergency injunction today." That afternoon was a blur of affidavits, signatures, copies, and courthouse elevators. Milo moved like a man possessed. We filed everything before 4 p.m. By the time I got home, my hands were still shaking, but for once, not from panic. The court emailed us back. Temporary restraining order granted. The house sale is frozen pending investigation of a second will. I screamed so loudly Jenna came running out of her room. "I did IT. She can't sell IT." She hugged me like I'd just won the lottery. In a way, I had. Not money, but the first real win in this twisted family war. The next morning, I got the call I'd been bracing for. Mom. Are you insane? She shrieked into the phone. Good morning to you too, I said calmly. You filed a restraining order against me. Over a house. Dad's house. The one he left to me. Her laugh was bitter and venomous. You're clinging to a fantasy. He left me everything. You were just the kid in the corner. My hands clenched into fists. That kid remembers everything, including the night he told me where to find the real will. You didn't count on that, did you? She went quiet. You think you can undo this? She hissed. I don't think I know. And when the court sees the timeline and the discrepancies, they'll know too. Click. She hung up. But she was rattled. For the first time. She was on the defensive. The following week was a roller coaster. Court filings. Milo going over every detail with surgical precision. We gathered character witnesses, including Dad's hospice nurse, who remembered him talking about leaving the house to his girl. Even the contractor who helped him build the upstairs bedroom recalled that Dad wanted it. Perfect for Alina's future kids. It was all lining up. Meanwhile, I watched Mom spiral from afar. She cancelled the open house. She changed the locks. She posted a nasty, cryptic rant on Facebook about disloyal children and ungrateful vultures. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Truth was on my side now. Then came the court summons. We were officially scheduled for a hearing in 4 weeks to determine which will was valid and whether fraud had occurred. Milo turned to me after we left the courthouse. You need to prepare for her to come at you hard. She'll try to ruin your credibility, twist every conversation, make it seem like you're just bitter and broke. I looked him in the eye. She raised me, remember? I know exactly how she fights. That night, I dug out an old box of Dad's journals from storage. Flipping through pages stained with coffee rings and pencil sketches of building designs, I found something I didn't expect. A note, tucked between 2 journal pages, written, in my dad's distinct handwriting. If Darlene tries to contest this, know that I never wanted her to house. I changed the will when I realized she only saw it as a payday. Alina, if you find this, fight for it. Fight for what's right. I broke down sobbing right there. This wasn't just legal anymore. It was personal. It was a promise. His final one. And I intended to keep it. *** 4 weeks. That's how long. I had until the hearing that would determine whether or not I had the right to reclaim the house. 4 weeks to go to war against my own mother. The irony? She taught me how to fight dirty. How to lie with a smile, manipulate a room with charm, and spin a story so good that people wouldn't dare question her. But this time, she made a mistake. She forgot who she trained. Every day felt like prepping for battle. Milo became my right hand. Building our case from the inside out. We started compiling evidence to challenge the legitimacy of her will. Because if we could prove she tampered with Dad's intentions, if even a single page in her will was proven to be falsified, it would all crumble. Timing is everything, Milo said one evening, pointing at the date of the revised will just 3 weeks before Dad passed. This was filed when he was already on morphine around the clock. He could barely stay awake by then, I said, heart pounding. Exactly. We'll subpoena his medical records. If we can show cognitive decline. At that time, that will is legally void. We got it. His records showed heavy medication, around-the-clock palliative care, and at least 3 notations of diminished lucidity. Then came the big one. Milo found something strange while cross-referencing the witnesses on the second will. One of the listed names, Nancy Holder, wasn't traceable. No license, no address, nothing. I think it's fake, Milo said. So we tracked down the second witness. A notary named Mark Tyson. He didn't know he was walking into an ambush when we called him for a verification. Over coffee, Milo asked, "Do you remember notarizing Alan McCarthy's revised will?" He scratched his head. "I do remember signing something for Darlene McCarthy. But it wasn't with the guy, he wasn't there. She said it was urgent. Honestly, I felt bad. She said he was too sick to get out of bed, and she'd have him sign later." I froze. "Wait, you notarized it before it was even signed?" He looked confused. "She said he was going to sign it later. That happens more than you'd think. Illegal." "That was illegal. We had him write a statement." Milo added it to the growing file. Brick by brick, the wall she built was starting to fall. Of course, Mom didn't stay silent. She started spreading rumors around town. Told our extended family I was mentally unstable, that I was trying to cash in on my poor father's name. One aunt called me crying. "Alina, are you really suing your own mother?" I bit my tongue so hard it bled. "No, I'm defending my father's last wish." But the guilt she tried to shove down my throat. It didn't work this time. Because I wasn't doing this out of greed. I didn't want $1 million payout. I just wanted what was mine. And she who had everything wanted to take even that. A week before the court date, Mum called me. Not screaming this time. No venom. Just quiet. "I've been thinking," she said. "Maybe we could work something out. I could give you a portion of the sale once it closes. Maybe $100,000. That's more than generous, Alina." It hit me like a slap. She was panicking. She knew. She was negotiating. "You really think I'm going to take a bribe to sell out my father's last wish?" I said. "This is what he'd want." She insisted. Double quotes, "No. This is what you want. Because you're finally losing." Then I said the one thing I knew would burn her to the core. "You never cared about the house. You cared about the check with your name on it. That's all you ever loved." Click. I'd said what needed saying. Court day came. I walked into the courthouse in a black blazer, Dad's silver watch on my wrist, and a folder clutched tightly in my hand. Mom sat on the other side of the aisle in a cream skirt suit, lips pursed. So tightly they looked non-existent. Her lawyer stood and immediately launched into a dramatic speech about how I was unstable, estranged, and seeking to sabotage a grieving widow's financial security. I let them talk, because I knew the truth was coming. Then Milo stood. And when he did, the courtroom changed. He was calm, methodical, and brilliant. He presented the original will, the nurse's testimony, Dad's journal note, and the notary's written admission that he notarized the second will before it was signed. But the moment that shifted everything, when Milo showed the court the exact morphine dosage Dad was on at the time, the second will was allegedly written and signed. The judge leaned forward. "Are you suggesting the decedent was not of sound mind?" Milo nodded. "Your Honor, we're not suggesting, we're proving it." The judge requested time to deliberate. When we walked out of the courtroom, Mom glared at me. "You think you've won something?" "No," I said. "I know I've protected something." She rolled her eyes. "You're just a petty girl with daddy issues." I smiled for the first time that day. "No, Mother. I'm a woman with evidence." We waited 4 days for the judge's decision. 4 long, exhausting, nerve-wracking days. And I'm not going to lie to you. Those days were brutal. I barely ate. I barely slept. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped like someone lit a firecracker under my seat. Because deep down, I still feared the worst. What if the judge sided with her? What if they dismissed Dad's note as sentimental nonsense? What if she walked away with everything while I was left clutching fading memories and a revoked promise? On the fourth afternoon, the email arrived. Subject: line. Probate court ruling, McCarthy v. McCarthy. Stared at it for a full minute. My hands shook as I clicked it open. The ruling was 6 pages long, full of legal jargon, case citations, and formal language. But I only needed one sentence. Based on evidence submitted and sworn testimonies, this court finds that the amended will dated April 14th is invalid due to lack of testamentary capacity and improper notarization. The prior will dated January 10th is reinstated in full. I read it twice, 3 times. Then again, just to make sure I wasn't imagining it. I dropped my phone, cried, and then I screamed. Jenna ran into the room thinking I'd hurt myself. But when she saw me laughing and sobbing at the same time, she started crying too, without even knowing what happened. "It's mine," I whispered. "The house. It's mine again." Milo called me an hour later. "Congratulations," he said. "You made history in that courtroom." "I didn't do it alone," I replied. He chuckled. "You did more than most people ever would. You fought a legal system rigged against you and won. And not because of tricks or drama. Because of truth." God, that felt good to hear. I've been so used to second-guessing everything I did. This win? This was pure, righteous. Deserved. The next day, I showed up at the house. Alone. I stood at the front gate for a long time, keys in hand, just staring. It looked the same but also different. Like it had been waiting for me to come back. Like it knew. When I stepped inside, the air felt heavier. The walls were bare, the rooms hollowed out. But every step I took brought back something vivid. Dad teaching me how to use a screwdriver in the garage. Sneaking cookies from the kitchen at midnight. Crying on the staircase the night he told me he was dying. This wasn't just a building. It was history. It was blood, sweat, memory, and love. And now, it was mine again. Mom, of course, did not take the verdict well. The first thing she did, post a 1,000-word essay on Facebook about ungrateful daughters and broken justice systems. She called me just once after the ruling. "You humiliated me," she spat. "No," I said calmly. "You did that yourself. I hope you choke on that house." That was the last time we spoke. She moved in with her sister across the state. The $1 million deal died the moment the sale was frozen. The buyer walked. The agency dropped. The listing, everything she planned, disintegrated like dust in a windstorm. And me? I changed the locks, painted the walls back to the color. Dad loved. Had the floors refinished but kept every original board. He laid with his own hands. The house wasn't just a home again. It was a victory. One afternoon, I found something hidden in the back of the linen closet. It was a box. Small, wooden, locked. Inside was a letter, dated 5 years ago. "To my daughter Alina, if you're reading this, I hope you've forgiven the people who tried to erase. You've always been stronger than they thought. This house is not just a structure. It's a promise of safety, of history, of home. Use it to build whatever life you choose. I love you. Always." Dad had cried again, of course, but this time, it was the good kind of cry. The story could have ended there, right? But it didn't. Because something incredible happened once I got the house back. People started reaching out. Friends, former classmates, even distant cousins. They all had their own stories. Of family betrayal. Of stolen inheritance. Of being gaslit and silenced and erased. Turns out, I wasn't alone. I wasn't the only one. So I started telling my story. Not just here. Everywhere.podcasts. Articles. Even a small segment on a local news station. And the more I spoke, the stronger I felt. The stronger they felt. It wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about reclaiming what's yours even when it's taken by the very people who raised you. It was about reminding women like me that you don't need to burn everything down to get justice. Sometimes you just need a copy of the truth and the courage to use it. Asterisk. Owning the house wasn't the finish line, it was the starting point. For the first time in years, I didn't wake up dreading the day ahead. I had my own front door key. My name was on the deed. The home that had once been a battleground of silence and passive aggression was mine to heal. But here's the truth they never tell you. Winning doesn't mean you're done healing. After the legal battle ended, the silence was deafening. No court dates, no hostile calls, no lawyers, no paperwork. Just me, in a too quiet house, with too many memories whispering through the drywall. I started small. Painted the front porch. Hung up the wind chimes Dad gave me when I was 12. I played jazz in the mornings the way he used to, letting the notes fill the house like incense. And every time I walked into the living room and saw that soft grey sunlight pour in through the bay windows, his favourite part of the design, I felt him. Not haunting, not heavy, just there, quiet and proud. I didn't expect what came next. Afternoon, while cleaning out the attic, I found a box labelled in Dad's handwriting. Project Legacy. Inside were blueprints, hand-drawn designs, sketches of an extension to the house he never got around to building. A studio apartment, open floor plan, skylights, garden-facing windows. Taped to the last page was a sticky note. One day, she builds something here. Something that's hers. I held that note like it was a living thing. And that was it. That was the moment. That's when I decided I wasn't just going to live in this house. I was going to expand it. Turn it into something bigger than just a home. I used the little savings I had, picked up extra hours doing remote freelance design work, and started applying for renovation grants. The most unexpected thing happened. My story, the one I thought would only matter to me, was picked up by a women's law blog. They titled it, "The Daughter Who Took Back Her Inheritance and Exposed Family Fraud." It went viral. Emails flooded in. People asking for advice, sharing their stories, telling me how much they needed to hear someone say it out loud. I was betrayed by my family too. I couldn't stop reading them. There were people who'd been kicked out of homes, lied to in wills, shamed into silence by siblings and spouses and even their own children. So I started replying. One email turned into 5. 5 turned into 15. Soon, I was setting up weekly Zoom calls with strangers, just like me, people who were grieving. More than a death, they were grieving betrayal. And we helped each other. We shared documents, connected to lawyers, gave each other courage. It wasn't just healing anymore. It was purpose. I started sketching again. Late at night, at the old oak dining table Dad had built by hand. This time, not just for me. I imagined turning the new studio into a transitional space, a guest house for women escaping family abuse or fraud. Somewhere safe, somewhere calm, somewhere you didn't have to justify why the person who hurt you also shares your DNA. And then, I did it. I launched a crowdfunding campaign, Project Legacy, from stolen home to safe haven. I thought maybe I'd raise a few $100s, raised $10,000 in 3 weeks. The comments moved me more than the money ever could. This is what I needed 5 years ago. My sister did the same thing. Thank you for speaking out. You turned pain into power. Then just as things felt like they were settling into place, the twist came. It was a Thursday. I was folding laundry, phone on speaker with Jenna. "I can't believe this is happening," I told her. "For once, I don't feel stuck." My phone beeped. Unknown number. I clicked over without thinking. "Hello? Is this Alina McCarthy?" "Yes. This is Detective Hayes with the County Real Estate Fraud Task Force. We'd like to ask you some questions about your mother's attempted property sale and her financial disclosures during the transaction." I froze. "Why?" "There appear to be inconsistencies. We're investigating whether there may have been broader fraudulent activity linked to other properties as well." "Other properties?" "She hadn't just tried to sell my house. She'd done it before. And now she was being investigated." Asterisk. I barely hung up the phone when the gravity of the detective's words hit me. Other properties. Fraudulent activity. Task force. My mom, the woman who accused me of being ungrateful, bitter, and selfish, was now being looked at by county-level fraud investigators. It wasn't just about our house anymore. And suddenly, all the puzzle pieces that never quite fit started snapping together. That night, I sat with Milo at the kitchen table, same spot Dad used to sit with blueprints and cocoa. "She wasn't just selling your inheritance," Milo said, scanning the notes I took from the call. "She was running a pattern." "But how?" I asked. "I thought our house was all she had left." He shook his head. "Remember the properties your father used to invest in? He and Darlene bought a few fixer-uppers back in the early 2000s. Maybe she still had access to them." "But Dad sold them all," I said. "Did he?" Milo raised an eyebrow. And I realized I didn't actually know. I was too young at the time. Mom handled all the paperwork. "Look," he said, flipping open his laptop. "Let's run a quick public records search." We typed in her name. Property records, deeds, transfers. And then we saw it. Not one, not 2.5.5 properties still, listed under some version of her name. Some under D. McCarthy Holdings. Others under McCarthy Family Trust with a P.O. Box address I didn't recognize. One had been flipped and sold just 6 months ago. Another, listed right now for $720,000 pending sale. "What the hell?" I whispered. Milo leaned in. "She's been playing the long game. Quiet transactions, using old business names. Probably just enough paper trail to keep it legal on the surface, but underneath, fraud. And if she used forged wills, or manipulated ownership records like she did with yours, she could go to prison." He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. I didn't sleep that night, not because I was scared, but because my brain wouldn't shut off. The courtroom, the lies, the years of subtle manipulation, the way she made me feel like I was the one being difficult, being dramatic, being greedy. When all along, she'd been building a crooked empire on my father's legacy. And I had no idea. Thought it ended with my house. But it didn't. She had been at this for years. And now, it was all unraveling. 2 days later, Detective Hayes met me at the county office. He was tall, mid-40s, wore his badge clipped to his belt, and carried a tablet filled with files. "I appreciate you coming," he said. "We've been tracking several transactions tied to your mother. After your court case, we reopened a dormant file from a woman named Elsie Brewster." He pulled up a photo. An elderly woman, soft white hair, wide smile, kind eyes. "She claims your mother convinced her to sign over power of attorney when she was sick. 2 months later, her house was sold under market value. Your mother kept the profit." I stared in disbelief. She stole from an old woman. She claimed it was caretaker compensation, but there's no contract, no payment records. And now, with your case and that revoked will, the pattern is clear. He tapped on another file. 3 more complaints, 2 settlements, 1 ongoing lawsuit. And we believe yours triggered a chain reaction. You may have opened the floodgates. I didn't know whether to feel proud or sick. By the end of the week, my mother's accounts were frozen. She hadn't been charged yet, but she knew what was coming. She texted me out of nowhere. "Congratulations, you ruined my life." I stared at the message and typed back, "You did that all by yourself. I just stopped you from ruining mine." She never responded. A week later, I got a package in the mail. No name, no return address, just a plain brown envelope. Inside, photocopies of my baby pictures. My first drawing, still crumpled and smeared with crayon. A birthday card from Dad that said, "To my little architect, keep building." And 1 single Polaroid of me, maybe 7 years old, standing in front of our house, arms wide open. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, "She was always meant to have it. I just didn't want her to win." That broke me, because it was never really about the money. It was about control. She couldn't stand that Dad loved me more deeply than she could understand. Couldn't handle the fact that I stood up to her. Couldn't accept that I had survived her. But I had. And the more she lost herself in greed and ego, the more I found myself in healing and truth. ****, some victories are loud cheers, applause, gavel slams, breaking headlines. But mine? Mine was quiet. It came in small waves. Like sipping tea in the morning sunlight filtering through the front window Dad built. Or watching a woman cry as she stepped into the studio I'd renovated and say, "I haven't felt safe in years." Or hanging a framed copy of Dad's original will in my office with the handwritten words, "Your home always." The investigation into my mother was underway. I wasn't directly involved anymore. And honestly, that was a relief. I didn't need to watch her fall. I just needed to keep rising. The studio unit was done. What started as a small idea in the back of my father's blueprints was now a breathing, living space. Warm lighting, calming tones. I furnished it with care-soft linens, peaceful art, soundproof walls. Within days of sharing the announcement online, the messages came pouring in. "Is the space open yet? I need somewhere to go. Can I talk to someone who understands?" My sister stole my house. My husband sided with her. I'm lost. I realized how common this was: family betrayal disguised as love. Inheritance used as punishment. Power games played on the bones of people like me. So I opened the studio's doors to more than just housing. I offered it as a gathering space, monthly circles for women navigating loss, betrayal, fraud, gaslighting. We called it a second key, because sometimes your first door gets slammed in your face, but you learn to build a new one. And carry your own damn key. Then the knock came. It was a Sunday afternoon. I had just finished tea with Jenna when someone knocked on the main house's front door. I opened it, and there she was. My mother. Hair pulled back tight, sunglasses on, holding a plain black purse. No makeup, no smile. "I won't come in," she said quietly. "I just needed to see it." I stepped outside and shut the door behind me. We stood on the porch for a long, unbearable moment. She looked around slowly. The trimmed hedges, the new pathway lights, the porch swing I'd reinstalled after Dad's old one had been tossed. "You kept the swing," she murmured. I said nothing. She finally turned to me. "They're going to charge me." I nodded. "I know." Her voice cracked. You really think I'm a monster, don't you? I looked at her for a long time, and then I said the hardest truth. No, I think you're someone who was so afraid of losing power. You sacrificed love for it. She blinked. Her face faltered. You hurt a lot of people, I added, softer. And not just me. She turned her face away like the wind hurt her skin. He always chose you. No, he saw me. That's different. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. That was too vulnerable. Too human. She pulled herself up. I'm going to turn myself in. I felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. But maybe recognition. She finally saw the damage, even if it was too late to fix it. I didn't expect you to build something, she whispered. I thought you'd run. I did run, I said, but I came back stronger. And for the first time in my life, my mother looked small. Not because she was weak, but because I was finally standing at my full height. She left that afternoon. No hug, no I'm sorry. But also no more venom. And that was enough. A week later, I got a letter from the county. She had accepted a plea deal, no trial, but full financial disclosure and restitution to victims. She would serve a reduced sentence, but was ordered to pay back damages. Her name was now tied to fraud, elder exploitation, and multiple counts of falsifying estate records. And me. I was listed as the whistleblower, the woman who stopped her. The next time I stepped onto my porch swing, the air felt lighter. Not because she was gone, but because I was free. Asterisk. The weight didn't vanish overnight. It didn't matter that I'd won the case, or that I'd stopped $1 million fraud, or that the woman who tried to erase me from her version of the world was now facing the legal consequences. What lingered was the scar. A part of me still flinched at loud knocks, still checked the mailbox expecting a bitter letter, a veiled threat, some final barb. That's the thing about betrayal. Even after you clean the wound, you check the stitches every morning just to make sure they're still holding. But slowly, I noticed something else growing. Peace. Not dramatic, not loud, but steady. It showed up in the way I watered my garden. Every morning. In the way the studio space smelled like lavender and new beginnings. In the sound of women's laughter from the porch as they talked, unburdened. The second key project had turned from a side effort into a movement. Jenna and I built a website. Told my story not just about the house, but about rebuilding. We included legal resources, guides to contest fraudulent wills, and trauma recovery support for survivors of financial and emotional abuse within families. Within 3 months, we had over 10,000 visits, dozens of emails. 3 women applied for the studio retreat. 2 flew in from out of state. 1 brought her teenage daughter, saying, I want her to see that you don't have to stay trapped in someone else's version of your life. That made me cry for a whole hour. Then one day I got a message from someone I didn't expect. Michael. My half-brother. Mum's son from a previous relationship. We hadn't spoken in years, not after he'd taken Mum's side, and ghosted me during the whole house ordeal. He was cold, clever, and always perfectly aligned with her plans. I stared at the message for 20 minutes before opening it. I heard everything. I didn't know she went that far. I'm sorry I didn't reach out. I didn't know who to believe. I was wrong. He asked if we could meet. Coffee, just to talk. My first instinct was no. Hard, no. But something in his message felt different. Humble. Human. And after sitting with it for a night, I agreed. We met at a small cafe not far from the courthouse. He looked older than I remembered, more tired. But less guarded. When he saw me, He stood. "You look good," he said. "You look nervous," I replied. He laughed awkwardly. "I am." We talked for over an hour. Not about Mom. Not at first. We talked about childhood. About Dad. About the tiny details you forget until someone else reminds you. The one thing he said that stuck with me was this: "I always thought she was just ambitious, controlling. But after reading the court records, I realized she wasn't just trying to win. She was trying to erase you." He looked down at his coffee. "And I let her. I didn't absolve him that day. But I didn't crucify him either. Because he was right. And maybe he'd been a pawn in her game too." 2 weeks later, Michael joined one of our Zoom sessions. Not as a leader, just to listen. That meant more to me than any apology ever could. Because change doesn't come from words. It comes from actions. I started journaling again. Not the angry, "I hate her" kind, but the kind that asks questions like, who do I want to become now that I'm not surviving? What does a peaceful legacy look like? One entry read, "She took so much from me. But in trying to erase me, she accidentally made me stronger, louder and more aligned than ever." That house? It's not her crime scene anymore. It's my origin story. In early spring, I hosted our first open house event. Not for sale, but for healing. Dozens of people came. Women, survivors, allies, a local journalist, even the probate judge who'd ruled in my favor. I gave a short speech on the porch, the wind brushing against my hair, the same way it had when I was 7, smiling in that old Polaroid. "I once thought this house was just a gift from my father," I told them, but it turns out it was also a lesson. That when people try to steal your story, you don't erase them. You just write louder. They clapped. Some cried. I held my ground on that porch, no longer just the girl who'd been robbed. I was now the woman who reclaimed everything brick by brick. Asterisk, year passed. 1 whole year since I stepped back onto the porch of my childhood home. Key trembling in hand, wondering if I'd ever feel safe there again. Now, this place doesn't just hold my memories. It holds everyone's. The house has become something more than a house. The studio unit? Fully booked every month. We've had women from all over the country stay with us, each one carrying a different version of my story. Not all of them were about inheritance. Some were about marriages gone toxic, others about siblings who turned greedy, parents who used money as leverage, and sometimes silence that lasted too many decades. But every woman who walked through our door left with more than she arrived, with strength, belief, plan. We started calling the house Anchorlight. Jenna came up with the name. "It's the place you return to," she said. "Not just to stay but to shine." The name stuck. It's etched in soft gold above the porch steps now. Anchorlight. A safe home for the unseen and undone. As for my mother, she was sentenced to 2 years of supervised probation, financial restitution, and mandatory counseling. No prison time, but full admission of guilt in civil court. The damage to her reputation was permanent. She didn't reach out again. And honestly, I stopped needing her to. That part of me, the part that wanted her to say I'm sorry, to hug me, to mean it, it quieted. Not because I gave up, but because I grew beyond it. Forgiveness, I realized, isn't always something you give to someone else. Sometimes it's a gift you give yourself. Then, this spring, something happened that brought everything full circle. I got a letter. Handwritten. No return address. But I knew that handwriting, like the back of my hand. It was from one of my father's oldest friends. A man named Gregory who used to help him build shelves in the garage when I was little. He wrote, "Alina, I saw your story in the paper. I wanted to share something your father once told me during a project. He said, 'This house will outlive me. But if Alina lives here, it'll outlive me too. You are always his legacy. The rest of us just built the frame. You gave it soul.'" I sat on the porch for a long time after reading that. The wind rustled the wind chimes. Birds darted across the fence line. And I swear I felt him there. That night I hosted a dinner. Under the stars. Tables on the lawn. Twinkle lights strung across the hedges. Former residents. Friends. Supporters. Jenna. Michael. Milo. I stood at the head of the table and raised a glass. "This house was almost taken from me," I said. "But in the end, it gave me something better than ownership. It gave me purpose." They clapped. Milo smiled proudly. And Michael? He nodded. The good kind of nod. The kind that says, "I see you now." Before the night ended, I went upstairs. To the room Dad designed for my future kids. I stood in the doorway for a while. No kids yet. No promises either. But for the first time, I wasn't haunted by what hadn't happened. I was just content. I placed a small frame on the windowsill. Inside it, that old note Dad left in his journal. "If Darlene tries to contest this, know that I never wanted her to house. Alina, if you find this, fight for it. Fight for what's right." I smiled. "I did, Dad," I whispered. "And I won. So here I am now, 30-3 years old. Owner of a home built with love, almost stolen by greed, and reclaimed with fire. I'm no longer the girl crying on the stairs while adults played games with her future. I'm the woman who stood up. The woman who fought back. The woman who turned pain into a blueprint and built something no one can tear down again. Because this house, it's no longer about inheritance. It's a legacy of light. And I'm just getting started. Asterisk. Thanks for watching. Hoped you liked it. If you watched till the end, please comment revenge so that we could understand you were with us till the end. As well as, please let us know, where are you watching from? Before leaving, please hit the subscribe button, comment your thought and share with your nearest and dearest one. See you in the next one. Until to the next one, stay happy. Asterisk.